Mike Dunleavy. And do you think that's actually what's going to happen? Yeah, that's actually what I just need to happen. Alright. Here's what I would say. I've been pioneering for two guys for a long time. Derek Fisher has, for a long, long time, been a favorite player of mine. The 10th anniversary of Point 4 was actually a very sentimental moment for me. We should play that clip at some point. Point 4 was fantastic. Carl was making an obscene gesture at me through the camera, and I don't know what his problem with that shot was. Because he's a Spurs fan, and he's a Blazers fan. And I think that we should all be able to bask in the glory of the amazingness of Point 4.
Hi, I'm Cameron Sadeghi, and I'm alongside Jordan Hunter, Noah Taborda, and Jake Leiker as we have a great show beyond the box score. We just wanted to do this show. We didn't really prepare as much, and we're just going to go and be random here. And we want to talk about the NFL and the NBA. But we mainly wanted to come here and talk about A.J. McCarron. Nick Rice talked about the greatness of A.J. McCarron along with Chris Sylvester. And let me just go ahead and say this. Andy Dalton is a great quarterback, and A.J. McCarron will not take the job. Do you guys agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. Especially with the fact that A.J. McCarron won't take the job. Look, the guy's a rookie, first of all. Second of all, Alabama didn't get carried by him. His team carried him. His running backs carried him. Lacey, Yeldon. You got all of these running backs, not him. Sure, he threw the ball a couple of times and he completed some passes, but that's because he had Amari Cooper. And he had an amazing offensive line. And his defense was even better. Dalton has done it more without that help. He's been able to compete at a high level. And look, the guy's lost a couple of playoff games, but he's young. Give him a shot, for God's sake. I mean, it's not like he's 45 years old now and he's coming into the twilight years. He's still not even really in his prime years.
Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think A.J. McCarron was drafted by the Bengals to be the replacement or to compete even with Dalton. I think he was there as an insurance policy if Dalton did get injured. The contract may be a little big, but Dalton was one of 5 quarterbacks in NFL history to lead his team into playoffs in each of his first 3 seasons. So he's doing something right. And I think it's kind of disrespectful to even consider A.J. McCarron to replace Dalton, who, like Noah said, he's had some slip-ups in the playoffs, but, it's a team game. It's not just him, maybe some of the receivers aren't running the right routes or something, but it's not all on Andy Dalton, and I don't want Dalton to end up being a type of quarterback who's a scapegoat for everything. Every loss, Dalton didn't do this, Dalton didn't do that. I don't want him to turn into Tony Romo.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate now in the media today. We jump on young quarterbacks, including Tony Romo. It's a team sport. It's the ultimate team sport. We need to place accountability everywhere. Jake, you get the final word with this one.
Oh, here we go again. Jordan brings up a really good point here. Yes, Andy Dalton has yet to win a playoff game, but he at least led his team to the playoffs. And by the way, in not a very easy division, you're competing against Baltimore, who won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And, of course, Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Cleveland's sort of just there. But Pittsburgh and Baltimore are 2 very competitive teams at this point. And Cleveland is on the upswing. When it comes to Andy Dalton, let's pretend for a second that Andy Dalton didn't get this extension. As a matter of fact, let's pretend that Andy Dalton was traded away from the Bengals. A.J. McCarron still would not be started. Because right now, the second-string quarterback for the team is Jason Campbell and his world-famous Chucky Chicken Noodle Soup in a can. Thank you, Andy Warhol.
Oh, my
Jason
God.
Campbell is ahead of A.J. McCarron. That tells you all you need to know. Don't go gaga over this guy who has yet to play a game in the NFL. I understand potential, but you are talking about a third-string quarterback compared to Andy Dalton, who, by the way, just signed a 6-year, $115 million contract extension. It's ridiculous. The entire thing is ridiculous, and on top of that, of course, Dalton is actually, him, Peyton Manning, and Cam Newton are the only quarterbacks with at least 3,000 passing yards in each of their first 3 seasons. A.J. McCarron will not have 3,000 passing yards this year, but I'm sure there will be zeros in there.
I thoroughly agree with what all of you had to say. Nick, come over here and explain yourself, okay? Chris, you know what? Put the mic down and come on this show and explain yourself as well. Let's also talk about something in the NFL that was pretty interesting. David Wilson, the running back of the New York Giants, is going to have to quit football due to a severe neck injury that occurred last year. Guys, the NFL is trying to make as many safety initiatives as possible. I mean, Heads Up Football is a program trying to make sure that kids know how to tackle properly and making sure that kids don't play with concussions, and injury protocols are now being improved. Does this David Wilson news really alarm you? And, if you had a family member, would you advise them to play football?
I would not. The doctor told him, you probably should be playing football, and he took that like a champ. He said, I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I live my dream. Now I have a chance to live another dream. So I think he's taking the high road. He's not saying, I'm going to try to come back from this. It's ending his career. It could be life-threatening too. He was a good running back while it lasted. I don't think it would have. I don't think he could have moved Rashard Jennings from that starting position. But yeah, it's really unfortunate when you hear, of guys like David Wilson, Isaiah Austin, type of guys who, had dreams, and those dreams are just crushed by medical conditions and injuries.
Noah?
Yeah, look, first of all, when we were at SBC Boston, Sidney Rice, of course, retired. And this is just continuing to trend younger because there are serious injuries, and players are starting to realize that their life is more important than football to them because they want to be around their family members. I think Junior Seau, that whole thing, really exposed the damages that football can cause. And that there was the interview with Junior Seau's son where he said, look, if it meant having my dad back, I wouldn't want him to play football at all. The whole Jermichael Finley thing with his son saying, Dad, I don't want you to play football anymore. He didn't want to see his kid like that. And I think all these players are realizing that it's more important to actually have their life than play football. And you know what? From a fan point of view, obviously it's going to hurt the game a bit, but from being a person and a normal human being who actually has feelings for other people, you realize that they're making the right decision, that they're making decisions that are healthy for themselves and not necessarily what fans want.
Jake, what do you have to say?
Yeah, again, alarmed isn't really the word here. As a matter of fact, I'm actually sort of proud and happy because it's not easy to walk away from the game as a Packer fan. I learned that the hard way through Brett Favre. It's not easy to, but these guys are stepping up. And again, by the way, this wasn't just a one-time thing. And Wilson, he is just returned to training camp after all-season neck surgery, and then he re-injured his neck. They said he'll be out for at least the rest of the season. A bunch of medical professionals came forward and said, you know what, he probably shouldn't return again. And David Wilson, who was just 23 years old, had the bravery and the courage to say, you know what, it's time to walk away from the game. I have a life to live. And again, a guy like Sidney Rice, for example. These are high-profile guys who are understanding now what this means to them and what this does to them. And as for the family member question,
yeah, and
I think there's a complication to it. I would not encourage somebody to play football. However, everybody has a dream. Everybody has something that they want. If you are passionate about playing the sport of football, and you know that this is what you want, and you understand the risks of playing football, and accept those risks, and still want to do this, and you know what? None of us have a say whether or not he or she should go out. My brother is deciding if he wants to play tackle football next year, and parents don't really want him to, but at the end of the day, look, if he really wants this, I think that he should go out, but you have to make sure people understand the risks that they are taking, because people didn't understand that back in the day. That's where you're seeing all these lawsuits come back into play. Now you have players that are a lot more aware about their bodies. Again, out of sight, out of mind. Sorry, sound mind, sound body. That's sound body, sound mind in this case. And you know what? These are brave decisions. I'm not alarmed. I am proud of David Wilson for recognizing this.
Yeah, you guys make some great points. The reason why I use the word alarming is because if you look at the future of this league, we know this league is regarded as arguably, I think most would agree that this is the number one sports league in America. The NFL is king. It's arguably one of the greatest TV sports of all time. And the big issue I see is, parents and, families are going to start saying, you know what, all these injuries, career ending, big risks. Most kids are going to start, they don't want to play football anymore. Do you think that all the lawsuits, the David Wilson news, all the Junior Seau incident, do you think that will contribute to possibly dethroning the NFL in the future?
I don't think it will, because people, kids these days are still growing up, playing catch with their dad. Their dad saying, "Wow, son, I can't wait for you to go play football." And I think it's still some of the kids' dreams. Even if they don't like it, they know it's kind of. Not everyone does it, but it's almost as a rite of passage to say, "Oh yeah, I played football." It's not for everyone, obviously, but with all these lawsuits coming out about head injuries, I think people are taking a more cautious approach to it. But I think football is going to keep growing. I think people are going to, want to be like the Richard Shermans and the Andrew Lucks of the NFL, and want to, because for some people, football is the only way out of their neighborhood, of the gang, the violence, the drugs. So they use that football to kind of get themselves a scholarship or get themselves looked at by a coach. All the time it works out. Sometimes they revert back to their old ways, but I think in a lot of cases, football saves people's lives indirectly.
Yeah, look, I think that in terms of, parents are going to be worried. But at the end of the day, there's a love for the game that can't be replaced. I think you look at it, there are kids, thousands, millions of kids right now, all across the country, watching football, and they're growing up with it. They grow up learning to love it. They see the injuries, but it encompasses their life, and they learn to love it so much. And I think that's big, because when you are growing up in an environment where football is so important, it's not easy to just say, "Oh, no, football is no more to me because of these injuries." Because the love of the game, you're willing to sacrifice that, obviously to a certain extent, but not too far. The players will keep playing because, they know that they could get injured, but it's their love for the game that keeps them pushing.
While I wish and hope that this is the truth, at least for the sake of the game, there is a little too much of this sort of euphoria going on around us when it comes to the NFL, now how it does encompass all the love of the game and all of that. But you know what? This is going to harm the game. I don't think anyone can tell me that when you actually learn about the injuries that can happen to you, and when you see these guys with CTE, not even knowing who their own family members are, and of course in the worst cases killing themselves, there will be undiscovered talent who will step back and say, "You know what? It is not worth it for me to be a quarterback, win 3 Super Bowls, and die at the age of 40 and not get to see my kids grow up." There is absolutely a harm to the future of the game, because there is a big dissuasion factor. And to be quite honest with you, now I don't have to make this decision because I'm not good at football. Punting, maybe. Punting people too, everyone. Congrats to Ray Guy, by the way. But
Yeah.
I don't really, truly believe that these kids, everyone's just going to come together and hold hands around the campfire, kumbaya. Yes, but it's for the love of the game. We're all going to be okay. No. That's not happening. What is happening right now is very real, scary, and dangerous. And the fact that guys in the NFL right now are bowing out says a lot about how that will impact the future generation.
Jake, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that obviously it's affecting the game. Nobody's saying it's not going to do anything to the game. But at the end of the day, I think that, in my personal opinion, that though some people will step back, I think the majority of people will stay in. I understand that they think that they theoretically could die at that age. But some people, and I think a lot of people, as a matter of fact, are just driven to play the game. I guarantee you, Junior Seau faced certain points where he thought of retiring. Jermichael Finley has done it as well. But they don't. And even though it may not be the best decision for them, it's because there are a large quantity of people out there who are willing to sacrifice their self, their body, for the game, even if it means that they will potentially die earlier, and it's not a smart thing to do. I'm not saying to any football player out there, go out and do that. I want you to die early. No. I'm just saying there are a lot of people who will do it. I think a large portion, I think a large percentage, probably the majority, are still willing to go out there. You know what, if it continues at this pace, maybe in 30, 40 years we'll actually have a really big difference, but we're still at the generation where people are still being groomed to play football, not only in small towns, but in the whole state of Texas and Alabama, places where high school football is king. So I think that at this point it's a little premature to say that this is the beginning of the end for football.
Oh, no. This is not the beginning of the end for football. Here, Cam, can you repeat what the question was at the beginning again? Because I just want to make sure I'm addressing the right thing here.
All right, what I just said was the alarming, when I mentioned earlier about the injuries being alarming because, the NFL is king and, obviously these injuries and these lawsuits have really concerned many families. And what I'm just personally thinking is, could this kind of be a slow death for the NFL? Because we promote this game so much, but the injuries and the risks are so, big that, as much as the glory that we can see, obviously the game has so many dangers. So despite the glory, shouldn't the risks outweigh the glory of the game?
The thing is, I would think so, but it's not my decision to make. Is this the slow death of the NFL? For better or worse, absolutely not. You know the term too big to fail? I think that is absolutely what we are looking at right now. This game is manifested into this part of our culture. I love football. It's my favorite sport to watch on TV, and I know these things are happening because at the end of the day, there is so much money, and there is so much influence, and it is part of the culture that for me, it's hard to say there are injuries, and therefore this is the slow death of the NFL. It is alarming in that sense, and there will be dissuasion, but the death, not until society stops glorifying it and stops being a multi-billion-dollar business.
Okay. Now, this show, I've done Beyond the Box Score before. This show is not really about game results or anything like that. We're just going to talk about, the business of the sport, the nature of the sport. And I want to continue with the NFL. Do you think that the NFL, with the pricing of tickets, it's become such a TV sport? I don't want to go to a stadium. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't want to go to a stadium anymore. If I can get NFL Red Zone for a cheaper price and I get to see every game, why should I even go to an NFL stadium? Is TV starting to become a negative thing for the NFL?
Can I tell you right now here?
Yeah.
TV, first of all, is how the NFL makes its money.
Yes.
The bigger the game on TV, they're not worried about tickets. For all they care, if everyone stops going to the games, that means more people are going to watch it on TV, and then TV channels will pay even more money for it. So it's sort of this endless cycle. For me, when you've had an NFL Sunday ticket for now, I think it's I don't know. All I remember is that we got in week 4, like, the Packers, I think it was the '05 season. I was in first grade.
All right.
About 9 years. And I still try and go to Green Bay once a year because there is an atmosphere, and maybe this is just for Lambeau Field.
Yeah, I agree.
Lambeau Field is a special place, but there are certain stadiums and there are certain teams where it is absolutely worth going. It is such a fantastic experience, but financially, with ticket prices going up, it doesn't necessarily make sense, especially if you have to fly from, like, LA to Green Bay. But there is a truth at the end of all of this, and that is TV is not killing the NFL. It is quite the opposite. TV is continuing to lift the NFL to even greater heights.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think actually this helps Carl's home field advantage doesn't affect anything argument. It's the fact that if people stop going, then your team no longer has a home field advantage. It just becomes like you're playing on a neutral field every time. That's not true. It's like you're playing where the Jaguars are all the time.
Yeah.
5 fans. Or the Tampa Bay Rays, but that's baseball. Look, I'm conflicted with this one. I understand that staying at home, it's cheaper. You're going to be a lot more comfortable. You're not out in the cold if it's cold where you are, or the scorching heat if it gets really hot, or anything in between. You have comfortable couches, not really hard plastic seats. Everything's nice at home. You got accessible food that you don't have to pay obscene prices for. All of that. And then and I understand that 100%, but then there is going to the game. You go to the game and you have the experience. I think you have the passion there. I think you have really experiencing the whole game. And if you get lucky enough and you have good enough seats, maybe you get some memorabilia while you're there. Somebody's glove, somebody's towel, which is kind of nasty. But I guess some people like that. Maybe, I don't even know, even a ball. It's just, that part is really appealing. But at this point, if I'm the casual fan, I see no reason to go to games. Because at the end of the day, it's more affordable for me. It's comfier for me. Everything is better. If it's a playoff game, now you really have to start reconsidering and saying, look, I got to go out and support my team so they can get through to the next round. But, most games, there's really no reason to go if you want to be smart financially.
I agree, and I'm just going to say this on just, personal testimony here. I've been to a Patriots game, really lucky to, and I've been to Gillette Stadium, and as great as Gillette Stadium is, as great, as the experience was, I'll be completely honest and say this. I love watching NFL Red Zone more than going to a game. And I've been to Chargers games, I've been to one Patriot game, and I think, the way the announcers are top-notch, the camera angles are top-notch. I mean, everything about the experience is off the charts. You can't find it even in the NBA. You can't find it in the MLB, where the announcers are arguably the best announcers in the world, okay? And I don't think any sport can say that. Would you guys agree?
Yeah. And here's this is actually interesting. So I went to a Bears-Ravens game last year. And, of course, I play fantasy football. And my number one attention wasn't even the game. I mean, it did get a rain delay, which kind of helped to change my attention. But I was focused on, okay, so what's going on in the other games? I need to know who's scoring. I need to know who's catching everything.
Yeah.
I need what's going on with my fantasy team, and that's the appeal of Red Zone. You found out every touchdown or NFL Sunday Pass game ticket, whatever you have, being able to watch. It's just that much more appealing because you actually know what's going on in every single game.
I mean, and we can talk about fantasy football all day. It's a game in a game, basically, with fantasy football. I mean, it's almost an extension of what's going on the field, and I think it's been great for the NFL because they've generated a lot of revenue in regards to fantasy football. Let's go to the NBA and just basketball in general. Jordan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
All right. Okay, I don't know how many of you play basketball currently right now, or have played, or just
Yeah.
avid fans, but uh, the AAU basketball, it's a game beyond a game, really. I mean, with the money handshakes, the shoe companies, and there are countless documentaries coming out. And I've played AAU. I've been lucky to play for one really good club, but do you think that the AAU game is ruining the fundamentals of basketball, Jordan?
I don't think it's ruining it. I mean, AAU it's such a great way for high school players, especially when the season's over in February or March, for them to just keep their skills sharpened and not get lazy and not because it's not enough to just work out with the trainer say every other day. Trust me, it's not enough. You have to in-game situations are the best thing. You have to be able to because if you say once your season's done. Summer comes, you just work out with the trainer. When that season rolls by, you won't know what to do in in-game situations when it's crunch time. So I think AAU is good in that aspect of you're playing 3 games a day every Saturday,
But
sometimes even Sunday, and you're practicing every other day, every day. So on that aspect, you're getting a lot of games in, which is good if you're a basketball junkie. But AAU, you develop a lot of bad habits.
yes,
A lot. Whether it's we got a big man in the key. Let me just not play a bunch of defense and let him just block everything. You have all these highlight reels. Everyone's prone to try and dunk, pulling up threes. Because sometimes depending on your coach, the coach either doesn't care or he really cares. And I was lucky enough when I was younger to have this. He was a great coach. He'd yell at us throughout the whole practice to get us better. We'd run, do everything. Then game day comes when he'd play those tournaments. He wouldn't say a word. He'd just give us his intimidating look if we're about to do something wrong or if we're about to go in. And it was scary, but at the same time, you knew he was a really good coach. We ended up, winning a state AAU state tournament with that. But I think AAU is 50% good and 50% bad.
I want to say this really quick. To me, I've always said this, like, champions are made in, like, empty gyms. Like, when it comes to basketball, I think you should practice 80% of the time and play games 20% of the time. I've always believed that. I think once you can't skip homework and think you're going to do well on the test. And the game is a test, and homework is practice. And I think once, the way, kids are playing 15 games. I mean, I've heard crazy 5 games in one day. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I've played 5 games in one day. It's not,
What?
or like I played 4 to 5. I mean, it's kind of. I play sometimes, in AAU, some of these coaches don't do a good job. I've been on an AAU club where they say go play on the 7th grade team, and that was the grade I was currently in, and then go play on the other 7th grade team. But I have another game too, so you're gonna burn me out and just use me. I feel like so many of these AAU coaches do that, and it's ruining the game. I think.
Ask you to give 100% 2 days later in practice.
Yeah, how am I supposed to give you everything if you're burning me out? And Noah and Jake, well, what do you think about this?
Well, I was at the Hall of Fame, the NBA Hall of Fame in Springfield, Mass. 2 weeks ago, and Alonzo Mourning was there for a question and answer segment. And one of the people asked him, "What do you think of AAU?" And he said he doesn't like it. He thinks it's hurting the game more than it's helping because, first of all, it's almost become more individualized. You slack off on defense. You're learning bad habits. You're learning more individual play instead of the team game, instead of the fundamentals. That's what he emphasized the most. That they don't emphasize the fundamentals of basketball, the passing, the defense, and that's the most important thing. Because he said at the end of the day, sure you can shoot the ball, but the most important thing is to know the fundamentals of basketball. And it's just the coaches. They're not emphasizing that.
Yeah,
a lot of people slack on defense.
I had one question for Noah. I know you're a big soccer fan, Is it the same for soccer? Do you think it's the same between playing like club team and your school team?
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite the same, but when it comes to a big team, if you're going to get an amazing player and you go to your high school team, they're going to demand a lot more from you. You go to your club team and they're going to say, oh, you don't really have to practice that hard because we just want you here. I mean, let's look at Germany, for example. They just won the World Cup. And the one thing they emphasize the most is fundamentals. They don't ever slack off on that. It's all the time. It's 1,000 times over and over again until you've got it down. It's kind of like Cameron said, you just repeat it over and over again. You do your homework over and over and over again because that's how you do well on the test. If you don't do well, if you don't study, if you don't do all of that, you're not going to do well. And that's the big problem. People are just losing the fundamentals, and they're losing what basketball is actually all about through AAU. I mean, it's not true for every single coach, for every single player, but there are a lot of AAU coaches and a lot of AAU teams that are not helping at all.
Jake?
Yeah, when it comes to AAU here, I'm not too familiar with how that system works, but what I do know is that person after person at the college level and the pro level have said that the AAU is hurting the game. And from what I understand, of course we know the NBA is a star-driven league, and it is definitely a star-driven league, more so than any of the other Big Four sports, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that AAU is sort of molding that as well, that it's become more about the individual and less about the team. And, that's what happens, of course, when you only have 5 guys on the court. But it's all about the individual, it seems now, with basketball, and I'm worried that AAU is feeding into that.
Yeah, I've in the basketball politics part too. I've felt one time a victim of. I mean, a few times a victim of it, but sometimes, But I think one thing that has to be pointed out, like Noah said, not all are bad. I mean, I've been a part. I've had a few good coaches in AAU, but I think players, they don't choose clubs that are going to practice, that are going to talk and preach fundamentals. They go to clubs like the Compton Magic who don't practice. I mean, I've had a teammate who played for the Compton Magic. They don't practice at all. They just play, 10 games a week. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't just go in the gym. I mean, anybody can go to Vegas now in these, district tournaments where they just get on short shoes and a jersey and let's go ball. I mean, that's not how the game originated, and that's not how the game should be played. And I agree with all of you. What do you think about the officiating in the NBA? There's so many conspiracy theories all the time. Do you think it's overblown, or is it just, or do you think there is some substance to what the average fan has to say?
I think there's a balance of some of the calls. Let me say this first. The fans are gonna want everything called their way. They're going to argue every call, everything that happens, regardless of whether they're right or wrong, because they want it all. And the refs, there are 3-4 refs per NBA game. They're not going to be able to see everything, absolutely everything. They should see most of it, but unfortunately they don't. And adding that replay almost anything in the last 2 minutes, although it slows down the game. I hear all these commentators complaining, it slows down the game. Well, for some of these teams, it's a big game. This would be a game that's deciding whether a team could end up making the playoffs. And you're complaining about how it's slowing up the game when it's a huge call.
Yeah, as I like to say, yes, flow is important, but at the end of the day, score is most important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think you can obviously start with Joey Crawford as one of the big issues. The fact that he is the star referee.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that everybody's watching because he messes up a lot. Wizards Bulls game, playoffs, and it was just so many bad calls in a row. And it's sometimes it was even against the Wizards, and I would still be like, this is horrible. Because the guy he just likes to blow his whistle, he likes people to look at him, and that's the big issue. We got egotistical referees that want to blow the whistle a lot, or we have referees that are scared to blow the whistle a lot because they feel like they'll get ridiculed about it, so they don't blow their whistle at all, and it's a lot of fan pressure. You go into an opposing team's gym or wherever, and you're blowing your whistle against that team, and suddenly the whole stadium is booing you. It's really demoralizing, and you can get really, really frightening if you're a referee. So, from a fan point of view, fans gotta lay off, because if they want a well-officiated game, booing the referee is not the right way to go.
And the fans don't want a well-officiated game, though. That's why they boo. It's because they want it in a game.
That's the problem, though. That's how the game will stay this way, and you will have wrong calls against your team that cost you the game because of the fact that you keep doing this, because of the fact that you keep putting this feeling into referees' heads. And that's just fans gotta accept that.
No, this is not the fans' fault. This is simply human error. There is no way to do it. There will never be perfect officiating until somebody creates robot referees and robot officials.
Let me ask you guys one more question, because we're going to have to head out. I thought of this idea. Some people are going to say that's ridiculous. Some are going to say it's amazing. But I think, personally, there should be an independent agency that's not affiliated with the NBA, that works separately from the NBA and just judges officials' calls. Okay? A separate independent agency that judges every single call a referee makes. And if there seems to be bias, or I've heard a referee, give cookies to one coach and not the other and all that stuff. But do you think there should be and this is yes or no before we go. I want to hear everybody. Yes or no. Should the NBA have an independent agency?
I think the NBA feels like they have to control everything. So I don't think it will happen. I think there should be maybe like a referees union or something.
Yeah.
Because all this bias, like you look, like in a guy like, say, DeMarcus Cousins, everyone hates him. He got 16 technicals and he got suspended. Look at a guy like KD, got 15 technicals, was almost suspended. So why is KD still getting superstar calls if he's getting almost just as many technicals from the refs?
Yeah.
The question is, the only reason to put in an independent agency, because the NBA wants good refs. I'm going to be flat out honest with you. Maybe under David Stern, I would be a little more skeptical of complete fairness here. But this is the Arizona League, and this, truthfully, you can make an excuse for conspiracy against or for any team. They already have this grading system going on. They already have it. There is human error no matter what you will do. The only bias I can tell you about in basketball is at the college level, and it's teams like Duke, where Coach K is just relentlessly going after the referees, screaming, saying every dirty word in the book at these guys, and they feel pressured to.
I'm just saying.
So it's when the coaches just beat them.
Okay, personally, I feel that it wouldn't hurt to have a group of people grading the referees separately. I think that just creates for, maybe less conspiracy, and I think it takes a little bit of slack off of the NBA in terms of what they have to do, in terms of just running the league in total. But the problem is, will it happen? No. It probably won't. It's unfortunate, but I don't think the NBA is open to that. And I think the NBA, to a certain extent, wants it reffed well, but they also want to bring in revenue. I think even Adam Silver wants to bring in revenue, and if that means superstar calls, giving KD, giving LeBron those calls, because fans want to see them play in the NBA Finals. I mean, look, it was not last year, but 2 years ago. If we had had a Spurs-Pacers final, not many people would have tuned into that, to be honest with you.
I agree. I would have tuned in, but I'm an NBA nut.
The Heat Spurs is much more exciting, and that's what ended up happening. Not necessarily because there were bad calls,
but
the NBA wants that, I feel like, more than they want necessarily a perfect ref game.
But I don't think the Pacers were better, in my opinion.
There's integrity that an organization of this prestige has to uphold. at this point. To be honest, if this is about bringing in money, the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder are not the top two teams in the Western Conference. If you wanted something that people were going to watch, they would have had the LA Clippers in there. Okay? I'm like a fan, I hate to say, but at the end of the day, it's about big market. It's about big market.
No, the new collective bargaining agreement has definitely changed that a little bit, Jake. I have to say that, and I appreciate what everybody has to say. Any last thoughts before we go?
Go Bulls.
Jake?
Those Lakers, bless their hearts.
Yeah.
Jordan? No last thoughts for you? Okay, bye everyone. This is...
Are we still on?
Jordan.
I
Wait.
have one thing to say. I do have one thing to say.
Okay, go ahead before we end.
Okay, 8 at 8. Remember that. August 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern, they debut of Infinity Sports Network. Please don't forget to tune in. And, of course, don't forget to tune into National Sports Network as well. We won't want to miss these exciting new developments coming up.
All right.
Looking up on Facebook at Kicking It with Jake and Noah.
All right, Beyond the Box score is over. Thanks, Noah. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Jordan. We will see you next. Actually, we'll be on the other show, so we want to just... everybody go listen to the other show, and we'll be on there. We'll see you next time.